What up, party people in the place to be, and welcome to You Are in a Video Store, the digital hangout. Let me start that over. Let me do it the right way. What's up? It is now slightly past 7 p.m. Central Time, and no matter where you are in a video store. The online portal to hang out and talk about movies for people who miss hanging out in real life and talking about movies. Whether or not you've been inside because of the pandemic for too long, like we have, or just because you're mourning that there aren't really communal spots to go see and talk about movies in the same way that there once were. Whatever you need, we're here for you. We have quite the digital community here, and it's awesome to have you. I'm one of your two hosts, and your only host for tonight, Adam Protextor. You can follow me on Insta, which normally pops up here, but let's pull the band-aid off real quick and let you guys know that Stephanie is not going to be with us tonight. What up, Glowcat? What up, Pathos? What up, Universe Retro? Love seeing two vagrants in the chat. Good to have you guys here. Glowcat, I love that you found the the raccoon emote. And and on that note, I actually owe y'all some emotes. Ilan, who is kind of our chairman of UltraLoop here, just to back it up a sec, you're watching UltraLoop on Twitch, which is kind of a variety channel. Ilan is kind of our boss, and there's some emotes of Ilan's face. I love that is your emote, Glowcat. That is wonderful. I owe you some emotes. Ilan texted me yesterday and asked for emotes of me and Stephanie's faces so that we could create very much the same thing that y'all are doing right here, so that we could gamify it. I owe those to him. If you are tuning in, just a quick shout out to a few people in the chat here. Pathos, thank you for always being so supportive. Please check out his streams. Universe Retro, we actually showcased some tapes we got from Universe Retro, I think last week in the new arrival section. Definitely follow Universe Retro on Instagram. Bobby at Universe, sorry, maybe I don't know if we use street names here. Universe Retro is actually producing a documentary on video stores called Mom and Pop, which is a documentary about the rise of the mom and pop independent video store in the 80s and 90s and that boom. So definitely follow his page. And Glowcat, we've shouted you out before, Glowcat, but if you have not heard it, check out Glowcat's page. They are part of Scrub House Video Club, and they make amazing video art and also run their own movie club. We can use street names, that's fine. Okay, well, let's do it. Street names are cool. I guess I meant to say government name. Anyway, Stephanie's not here. Stephanie recently picked up a gig, and I gotta tell y'all, it is making me, it is giving me the cabin fever, because I definitely have enjoyed staying in and just doing this stream and working on art and working remotely. But Stephanie's been picking up some events gigs since we relocated. Last night she got to work the Netflix premiere for Fear Street. My dog's freaking out. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you only have one host. I'll be right back. Hey, baby girl. Get out there. Get up here. Lay down. Lay down. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Anyway, that's right. I have a big old dog, and she's normally asleep during the stream, but I think that she's a little on edge because Stephanie's not usually gone. Anyway, normally I have a co-host named Stephanie. She's working a pop-up event tonight. Last night she got to do Netflix's premiere of Fear Street. She's been doing a lot of cool stuff on the events tip, and I gotta say, I'm getting cabin fever and wanting to get back out into the world. I'm excited for it too. She got to catch it last night. She was working the event, but she said she caught most of it. She said she really liked it. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Apparently R.L. Stine was in attendance, which is rad. Cool. So anyway, I'm going to be doing this solo. Y'all know whenever we do this solo, generally it means we're going to go for a little shorter, but maybe not. Probably like 2 hours today. And if you're joining us for the first time, Universe Retro, I know you've been trying to tune in for a while, so thank you for coming. I really appreciate having you here. And just to break down how the show normally goes, generally the first act of the show is called What Did You Watch? I should probably get a proper little bumper for it like we have for the other sections. Anyway, What Did You Watch is your chance to tell us what you watched over the past week, our chance to tell you what we watched. We always say, consider it that you're leaning on the counter of a video store just shooting the shit about good movies you've seen recently. We'll give you recommendations if we feel we have them. We'll take your recommendations. I actually just got on Letterboxd under Protextor, and that... Dog, why? I don't understand. It's just not going to happen today, right? No barking? Calm down. Calm down. She's keyed up that her mom's gone. Dog, she's just staring at me, kind of making little gruff noises. I think she's such a rare appearance on the stream that I feel like I could be lying, but I'm not. There is a dog staring at me right now. Anyway, train of thought, dog. Thank you. I've been enjoying gamifying the things we watched and trying to pick double features. Stephanie was doing a fun thing where she would pick a reverse double feature. Second part of the stream, anyway, the first part of the stream is our most chaotic by far. We just talk about what we watched, just hang. Second part is new arrivals. That is whatever unboxing we have to do. Now, I think I noted this last week, but been balling on a budget since the move, so the new arrivals section has not been quite so dramatically like unboxing hauls as it once was. But I did visit a really cool shop in LA a few days ago and found some really some discs that I've been hunting for a while that we will talk about. And then finally, Movie Club. Now, the month of June, we have been celebrating Pride Month by diving into queer cinema of all types. We started with Hedwig and the Angry Inch. We watched Pedro Almodovar's Skin I Live In. We watched Desert Hearts, which was new to me and Stephanie. We loved it. That was last week. And this week's movie club is Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Kind of a criminally underappreciated movie. We'll get to that at the end of the stream. We will talk about Freddy. And then we will talk about what our movie club pick is moving forward, which I'm super stoked about because I think we have all agreed that July is going to be summer blockbuster month. And so every week we'll be picking a summer blockbuster to dive into. So very open to y'all's ideas there as well. Let's get started. Let's see here. Thanks to Letterboxd, I remember what I watched. Yeah, y'all know that I've been using the Notes app on the phone to track everything I'd watched. And I've had friends trying to get me onto Letterboxd forever. And, honestly, I think I've said this on the stream, but my philosophy was just that I already kind of, as someone who's trying to, market myself as a creative, I already kind of resent having to be on social media so much. And so movies being such, a happy place for me, I didn't want to mix them. And I was wrong. I'm just going to say I was wrong. I thought that Letterboxd was going to feel much more like a social media platform. It feels a lot healthier and more fun than I thought, and I'm happy to be on it. So I'm trying to use it more, and I'm enjoying it, and I was just being a stick in the mud for way too long. It also helps me remember what I watched, but I'm still going to keep doing the notes list because it's become kind of a ritual at this point. Y'all, I got to take a moment to examine what my dog is barking at. This is unconventional behavior. Give me 30 seconds because she is just kind of on a loop of staring at the window, looking at me, looking at the window, looking at me, and going, "Rrr, rrr." So I'm going to see why. I'm going to peek outside and see if we got some crazy people on our lawn or if I just have a crazy dog on the couch. One moment. Honey bear, what do you see? Oh my goodness, no one's outside whatsoever. Oh, no one's outside. We didn't get any packages. Everything's fine. And it's time to chill out. Be nice. Okay, sleepy times. All right, we talked about it. Yeah, I think she's just excited about the world. Let me catch up. If you see me looking this direction, by the way, this is my monitor. I always want to tell people that. June, my God, dog, you gotta stop. You want to kennel up? Please, girl. Please, girl. We're trying to hang out. This is like if y'all were over here hanging in the living room trying to hang, and she kept, loudly barking at everyone as we talked. Although, in reality, if you guys were all here hanging out, she would be running around trying to lick and kiss and cuddle you all, and you'd love it, probably. I know I do. Okay, anyway, this is my chat right over here, so if you see me looking to my right, that's what's going on. Hey, what up, Wedge? Welcome to the stream, Wedge. Okay. added something to the overlay that points to waste checks and the that's a good idea, Pathos, actually. It's a really good idea. So good of an idea that I'm going to write it down right now so that I can do that for next week's stream. Overlay for show portion. That's a great idea. Cool. Well, we're in the what did you watch section. We just started tonight's stream. Dog found a ghost. That is very likely. All of a sudden... Dog. Seriously. There's nothing out there. Hey. Tss. This is so distracting. I'm so sorry. It's like one of the like... I'm going to give Stephanie a hard time. I'm going to be like, you weren't here, and the dog just couldn't take it. He bark, he protect. She's a girl, but I call her he by accident all the time because I mix up her and her brother, and I'm always saying good girl to the cat and good boy to the dog because they don't care. Because I love them both, and that's apparently when you use someone's name, like if you refer to someone's name or mix up to like children, like your parent calling you by your sibling's name, apparently it's because your brain has categorized those people in a section of your brain that you love them, and it just gets cross-wired. So anyway, I say it's a sign of love. Speaking of love, a 4-month-old baby is quite the. I mean, I feel like dealing with a newborn is the definition of love and dedication. I'm happy that you. I mean, honestly, beyond being happy, I'm grateful that you make the time or put us on in the background, Wedge. I just like hanging out with you and Abby, and I'm grateful that amidst the chaos of having a little baby, you're here. So thank you. Anyway, let's get into the what did you watch section of the show. If you watched movies, clearly, Wedge, you were not able to watch any movies. Hey, the dog's real. She's going to make a cameo. A non-barking cameo. There she is. See, it's a real dog. It's a real dog. Okay, Glowcat has an incredible list here. I have a short list. I'm wearing the shirt of one of the movies we watched. And a few of the movies we watched on our end were things that Stephanie had never seen that I was really excited to watch with her and see her see. And so I'm a little remiss she's not here, but she'll have to give us her thoughts next week. We also went to the theaters for the first time since, for me, it was since Bad Boys for Life in February of 2020. Went to a theater in LA called Brain Dead Studios, which was really cool. A lot of archival stuff. I'll get into that as well. But let's start with Glowcat here. Okay, sorry, it's all dog distraction. If you see me looking and laughing. Okay, this is the past 2-ish weeks because my SO was visiting, so I rewatched some things. But the movies I watched: Nobody for the second time, Upgrade, A Quiet Place 1 and 2, Psycho Gorman again, Balance of Power, and 2019 After the Fall of New York. Okay, let's dive in here. Now, Stephanie and I watched... June! Okay, y'all. You hear that? I'll be right back. I'm sorry, y'all. It's like having a baby, but not. Okay. Door to the bedroom is closed. Dog is on the couch. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Let's go back. Nobody. Okay, so when you watch this twice, I'm interested to see what y'all thought. I actually see some people talking at the bottom. Aw. I love that Wedge is watching vicariously. Nobody was amazing. The second viewing was better than the first because you know what to pay attention to. Universe Retro really enjoyed. Nobody is Bob Odenkirk. I love Bob Odenkirk. Actually, deeply love Bob Odenkirk. Kind of a career goal, career icon. To be able to kind of not only changed the face of sketch comedy with Mr. Show, but then to go on and produce and direct independent films and end up coming back later is kind of a renaissance for him. He's got a really cool career in film and comedy, and I love Bob Odenkirk. I didn't like this movie very much. I hate, honestly, feel like I hate when this happens. I just want to vibe out and enjoy stuff all the time, but I liked it. I'm going to back myself up. I'm not going to say I didn't like it. I'm going to say I liked it, but I didn't love it. Stephanie and I watched this together, and I think we both felt the same way. I think we were also coming in from some Jackie Chan stuff, and so the action didn't... I think we had just watched something like Police Story, and so it was just hard to get the, kind of constant cutting. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and I'm trying to remember what we thought. Because I think for the most part, we're like, this is a really fun movie. I don't know. Were you here for that, Glowcat? Did we talk about this? Did we talk about kind of the slight right-wing nature of revenge movies and stuff, and kind of compare this to John Wick? I honestly, nobody is not fresh in my head. I will say with everything, is that I recommend everyone watch everything on their own. So I'm not what am I trying to say? It's so weird not having a co-host and also being super caffeinated. Y'all, you know what? I'm gonna take a moment. Reset. Okay. With Nobody, I think Stephanie and I really enjoyed it. But my criticism was simply that I was kind of taken out of it by the ramshackle way in which it was cut. I think that it came down to editing for us. The editing of the action sequences and the editing and pacing of the movie that sometimes engaged things like narration and then did away with them. And the kind of ethos of it, I didn't really vibe with. It felt like there was a movie inside of this movie about a man who felt compelled to do violence, and there was an exploration of that, American violence, that was kind of buried and left super subtextual. I remember at the time kind of thinking of it like A History of Violence, which is one of my favorite movies, and has a similar story of the everyman with the violent past coming out. And I think I wanted it to do a little bit more of what History of Violence did in terms of showing me more of that character. So I would say I really enjoyed Nobody as an action film, but I felt it came up short on the editing and character. I would be interested... John Wick, but a comedy. I like that way of putting it, too. Someone destroyed your mailbox and left you a note. I love that. Is there a destroyed mailbox in Nobody? I wouldn't be surprised if there was. I feel like there is. I love Bob Odenkirk. Anyway, I guess... Not trying to talk shit on this movie. I just didn't love... I guess what I'm saying is I didn't love it as much as a lot of my friends did, including you. Most of my friends who watched this, Great Job Nerds, who's often in the chat here as well, loved it. And I think that maybe it also suffered from Stephanie and I going in overhyped. Who knows? In any case, I feel like Nobody would be a really good double feature. I'm going to pitch my double feature here with History of Violence. Upgrade is one that I've never seen, but I remember being really interested in it because of the weapons coming out of the body thing, which a decade ago I made a straight to video horror movie called Dropping Evil. That's one of the main character's superpowers is he can pull guns through his palms and stuff. And I remember seeing the trailer for Upgrade and being like, that's that idea, but with a big budget, or not a big, but a better budget. And I always wanted to see it, to kind of see the vibe there. It looked great. Quiet Place, I haven't seen either of those. I feel like Glowcat, you always come in with the ones that I'm jotting them down to watch. I don't know why I never watched the Quiet Place movies. The first one was actually written by these two guys in Iowa who, when I was in high school, I had a few short films I made in festivals with them, and I saw their student films, and I just never really got to know them or worked with them in any way, but I remember seeing their names on the poster for Quiet Place and be like, oh, those guys wrote this? That's incredible. The second one, I believe John Krasinski took the reins on. So I'd be interested. What are your thoughts on those? Honestly, I feel like horror of the past 5 years is something I really need to catch up on, which also is going to include Psycho Goreman, which I've only heard amazing things about, and I haven't seen yet. So, you know what? I'm going to pull up the letterbox and add Psycho Goreman and Upgrade to my watch list on Letterboxd real quick. Balance of Power, again, not one that I have seen. It is the name of one of my favorite late ELO albums that no one likes. Let's see here. I love the 89 ELO album Balance of Power, and then 29 After the Fall of New York, which I'm assuming is like an Italian Mad Max ripoff, but I have not seen that either. In fact, I've only seen one of the movies you watched, Glowcat. You must come on this show as a guest to be our correspondent, because I feel like you could really fill in a lot of the gaps on the horror B-movie side of things that we are missing. Like, I want you to come on as an expert correspondent. I'm not joking. If you're down for that, I want to figure out a way to zoom you in. And real quickly, let me add these to my... all right. Cool beans. And then Universe Retro watched several, but most notably Censor. Okay, I'm going to scroll down and catch up on the chat here. The way I felt about Upgrade, a bunch of friends, it was really style over substance. Fair. That's kind of how it looked, but the style looked really cool, so I was down to check that out. Vinny said Upgrade was incredible. Vinny is Great Job Nerds, who is a regular here on the stream. Okay, Glowcat. A Quiet Place 1 only watched because I was invited to see the sequel, watch them back to back. Sequel's better than the first one, fixes a lot of problems, but I never recommend anyone watch the first one. Which, I've heard this. It's weird, like, yeah, I feel like I never really quite had the same sensibilities as these filmmakers from Iowa that wrote this. But I didn't, want to be a hater, because it's like, how many times do small filmmakers from Iowa, I don't want to be a dick, but I haven't seen it, but I feel like I've heard this criticism, and I'm honestly interested to see both of them. And Vinny, Great Job Nerds, Man of Many Names, VBG, has given me a deserved amount of shit for the fact that, good girl, the dog is sleeping very peacefully now. Good dog. Good baby. He's given me a deserved amount of shit for the fact that I have really slept on a lot of horror of the past 5 years. I think, on a personal note, sometimes I feel like, but there's so much film history that I still haven't seen, and I tend to, impulsively watch older things because I feel like I'm still catching up. Like, I'm not ready for the teens in the year 2021 yet, because I'm still so behind. Whereas, most people are living in the present and watching new media. So I'm trying to mix it up more. So on that note, Psycho Goreman I know is a big standout. And if anyone has any recommendations for horror from the past 5-10 years that you love, let me know. I think I got a little burnt out on the kind of teens James Wan ghost story aesthetic, and it just wasn't for me. And I also definitely got into trouble with Great Job Nerds for talking shit on Ari Aster's movies. Well, not talking shit on them, just not loving them like he did. And Wedge says A Quiet Place is kind of a basic horror movie in some ways, but definitely enjoyed the story. And sure, oh, nice, Glowcat, would love to have you. And yes, I feel like usually too busy watching shit everyone forgot about and digging for gems. Yes, that's it's like pulling teeth to get me to watch most modern horror. Exactly. I'm exactly the same as you in this way. I'm like, but what about all the stuff we forgot to talk about in its time? Shouldn't we rescue the movie from 1983 that everyone forgot about before we talk about this movie that just made millions of dollars and is already successful? That's, in some ways, I feel like that's a blessing and a curse, because you're going to see really cool stuff, but you're also going to miss out. And such is the life of someone who wants to watch every movie ever made. Universe Retro would dig some Rex, looking for something to watch tonight, a newer horror. Great. And Wedge also thought Quiet Place was good, or in contrast, liked it. So hearing the sequel's better is great. And then Balance of Power, Hidden Tiger, almost wholesome version of Bloodsport with Billy Blanks. That sounds super fun. It also definitely sounds like a Glowcat recommendation. Well, rad, y'all. I wish that I had more like double features to play with here, but I feel like Glowcat, you hit me with ones I've never seen, so it's harder for me. But if you have other recommendations, please share. And in terms of the modern horror recommendations, Universe Retro is looking for something to watch tonight, and I certainly would appreciate them as well. Consider it solicited. All right, I'm going to scroll really quickly back up. Fake Robot Dog. No, she's real. She's a real one. Okay, movies. Oh, Censor. Yeah, Universe Retro. Oh, that's right. I love that. Yeah. Well, let me write some of these down. It's honestly it's faster for me to write down with my hand than it is to type it into Letterboxd. Because I also have a list on Letterboxd now there's a list on my profile for my staff picks, there's a list for Stephanie's staff picks, there's a list for our movie club picks, and there is a list for chat recommended movies. So I will add those to the chat recommended movies as well. Final Jump. Yep. How was Censor? I know nothing about this movie. I really only know about it through seeing the poster on Letterboxd and seeing that other friends have watched it recently. One of them perhaps was you, Universe Retro. What did you think? I guess I also saw it pop up on, there was a story about it on Letterboxd. They were kind of featuring it, having the filmmaker talk about the video nasty era. Which is definitely weirdly in the zeitgeist. A lot of, even Stephanie, she went to the Fear Street Netflix premiere last night, and she said they're doing some pop-up stuff, like 1994 video store pop-up stuff. So I feel like the aesthetic that we're all loving is having its time in the sun again, and we'll probably have to grin and bear it as we see corny misunderstandings of VHS on TikTok and stuff. But overall, if it means more film preservation, it's good. Anyway, Censor. I'm rambling. And anyone else who hasn't shared what they've watched, please feel free to drop it in the chat. If you know the video nasty era and slashers, you'll get it more than someone that doesn't. Cool. I like that. That's a good, succinct, spoiler-free recommendation. I'm going to write it down. Actually, speaking of new horror, just got Shudder. Got it to watch Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, the Mark Patton documentary that is about Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I watched that last night in a double feature with Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which I really recommend watching those back to back. But now I have Shudder, and I'm really excited to kind of dive in more to what's on there. So feel free to recommend. Modern horror. What to think on that? Possessor is one that's been on my list for a while. The Brandon Cronenberg movie. That and Censor are two big ones I want to watch. We talked about it on the stream a ways back, but we watched Midsummer, and I didn't get as much out of it as a lot of my friends did. Then again, I went in, I think, a little biased. When I saw Hereditary, I remember thinking, this is about 90 minutes of an incredible supernatural story about grief and depression with some incredible performances. And then I remember, while watching the movie, getting oh no, oh no, oh no, at the end, and being don't, no, please don't. And no, you did it. You did Rosemary's Baby. Okay. And that was disappointing for me, because I thought it had a strong, I didn't think it needed that. And going into Midsummer, I went in thinking, I saw the poster and the trailer for Midsummer, and I thought, this better not fucking be Wicker Man. And it was, and it kind of disappointed me. So that's why sometimes I feel a little like distant from new horror. Is that maybe I'm just being too much of an old man about seeing the influences and not letting things just vibe on influences. The Lodge. What is The Lodge? Look that up. Oh, cool. This seems cool. I'll add that to the watch list too. Did you like Hush? Universe Retro? Hush? That's a newer, I would say last 7 years or so. Really cool stripped down little one-on-one cat and mouse. Yeah, I'm trying to think like, man, you know, it's funny because my favorite thing about working at a video store and about this stream is getting to turn people on to movies that I love, and vice versa, that maybe we were unaware of before. And when it comes to modern horror, it's like someone asking for a recommendation, and I'm totally coming up blank. We'll get to it. Did you like Lodge? The Lodge? It looks similar. That's what made me think of Hush. Is that it's kind of a snowed in, trapped movie. Feels like it would make a good double feature with The Shining, perhaps. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all what I watched and kind of talk about that. Kind of nerd out on that stuff, tell you what I recommend, what I don't. First of all, I watched Super Mario Brothers, which I have not watched the extended bootleg cut yet. The one that I watched is the VHS copy that I got from Universe Retro. I had started it last week and talked about it a little bit, but I finally actually rewatched the whole thing, finished it. First time that I'd watched it in years. I really, really dug it. I thought that it was, I thought that it was like a total victim of expectations. Obviously, it's nothing like the games, and I think that we all kind of have been through. I think a thing that has happened culturally over the past 20 years is a lot of reassessment of things. The internet, in particular, has made it very easy to look back on things and share, Letterboxd, this show, etc., and kind of reevaluate them. And I think that's happening with Super Mario Brothers. That appears to be the case, is that people are giving it a fair shake. But there was definitely a period of really toxic nerd culture throughout the 90s and aughts that was like, you didn't give me what I wanted, and I demand it, and therefore fuck your movie. That actually plays into our movie club pick, Freddy 2, as well. It is a weird interpretation. It technically follows the, super dark, felt like Aster, cool. Nice. On the Lodge. Yeah, it is super realistic in a really weird way. And I think as a kid, I was young enough that it didn't bother me, because my experience, I could see where if I had been 5 years older, maybe it would have really bothered me. But my experience with Mario was like playing it on Game Boy, I had a Game Boy, I didn't have a console, my folks wouldn't let me get a console, but my grandparents had an NES with Mario 1, 2, and 3, played the hell out of those, but I was young, and so when the movie came along, I didn't want a cartoon world. I thought it was cool that it was, I thought that sci-fi guns and lizard animatronic effects and goop were cool. I was like, it reminded me of Ninja Turtles and the ooze and the animatronic amphibians. It reminded me of Jurassic Park. It reminded me of Running Man, all the weird sci-fi goopy gore, we like to talk on this show about how horror is always a barometer for what culture is afraid of at a certain point, and atomic toxic waste, really, like the idea of toxic waste and the destroying the environment really took over pop culture aesthetic in many ways in the 80s and 90s, and that goopy green slime, I'm there for it. Trust the fungus. Goop. I did not know that Bob Hoskins went off on it. I know that I know he got injured several times while making it. But yeah, that was super fun, and I would recommend it in a, let's see, what would I recommend Super Mario Brothers in a double feature with? Dang, this is a tricky one. Actually, I have some ideas. I know I do, because I actually think on Letterboxd, I think this is one of the few movies that I reviewed, and I said, double feature with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, if you want to get that Hoskins double tap. The Toxic Avenger, if you want to see the like adult version of the goopy superhero. And then Adventures in Dinosaur City, which is a made-for-TV movie with some cool dino effects from 1992 that is also about a city of dino people. Incredible pathos. I will look that up. And Double Dragon. That is a great call. For sure. All right, moving on. What else did I watch? I watched 2 experimental shorts. The Pursuit of Happiness, which is from 1940. In 1941, which is from 1941. I really love Flicker Alley. If y'all enjoy experimental, classic, silent, archival film, Flicker Alley and Eureka often share licenses, and I always just decide which one I want to buy from, honestly, based on the packaging. But Flicker Alley put out this really nice set. I love it. It's called Masterworks of American Avant-Garde Experimental Film, 1920 through 1970. It's a 2-disc set. First disc is the 20s through the 50s. Second is the 60s and 70s. And so I've been working my way through this over the course of several months, watching just a few at a time every once in a while. So these were from 1940 and 1941. I really love watching experimental shorts from the early days of cinema, at least the first 50 years of cinema, because the technical innovations that are being done on the ground level with no money by artists working in their own studio oftentimes is a harbinger of things that you won't see in Hollywood for years to come. And it's a really cool look into the creative process of how the language of film and the dynamics of what it could do were hammered out. Pursuit of Happiness, the first one, it's the only film, I think, that survived from an artist who lived in New York in his 20s. It's a city symphony film. And so city symphonies were a thing that there's only a handful of them, but they've actually been made up until very recent years. And a city symphony film is basically someone cutting together footage of a city to evoke its people, its architecture, its vibe, set to usually classical music. Berlin Symphony of a Great City is, I think, the standout of this genre. It's also a Flicker Alley release. Up here, is this it? This is it. Really love this movie, Berlin Symphony of a Great City. Pursuit of Happiness was not that. It didn't knock my socks off, honestly, because the fact that Dziga Vertov is making the man with the movie camera over in Russia and experimenting with all these double exposures, mirrors, prisms, crazy effects, a good almost 10 years before, this did feel like a kid with a movie camera running around New York, and honestly, that's what it is. It was a 21-year-old painter running around New York with a camera. So, Pursuit of Happiness, an interesting historical document, not as mind-blowing as an experimental film, but a very cool document of life in 1940 in New York City. 1941 is 6 minutes long, and was made in December of 1941 by an artist a few weeks after Pearl Harbor. So this was even more fascinating, and I really loved this one. It's 6 minutes. It's bright colors, which I'm sure was very expensive for this artist at the time, but essentially it's like a cavalcade of violent imagery, abstract violent imagery, light bulbs filled with blue paint being smashed with hammers. It's very much an aesthetic film, obviously non-narrative experimental, but it was an aesthetic meant to capture the unexpected violence of Pearl Harbor, and it's just really special that it was created on the heels of the Pearl Harbor attack. I mean, that would be like an experimental filmmaker releasing an abstract image film, on September 21st, 2001. Really interesting stuff. And again, if you're a fan of film history, I really recommend you check out Flickr Alley. Ugly Homely. Cool. Ugly Homely. Ugly will never not make me think of Salute Your Shorts. Right? Camp Ottawana? Yeah. Okay. Then I watched another short, which I'm going to drop the link for. Let me grab it real quick. This short is a friend of mine's short. And let's find it here. It got debuted. SEO on it doesn't rule because of the title. So I got to type in the filmmaker's name as well. Here we go. Okay, so it got picked up by Film Shortage as the daily pick. I'm going to drop that link in the chat. Makes me want to fart. Now get it right or pay the price. Okay, so I Am Texas is on Letterboxd, which I was happy that I could give my homies movie 5 stars on Letterboxd. Sidebar, I still feel weird about using star ratings because I feel like every time I do a star rating, I look back on it a year later and disagree with it. So I'm trying to only use 5 stars for homies stuff just to help their rating go up, which maybe is whatever. I'm not a professional critic. I don't owe the world any. What am I trying to say? Oh my God, ethics when it comes to my star ratings. It's how to use it. Yeah, I mean, okay, here's the thing is I used to love the 5-star system. Universe Retro, basically you just kind of like fill out your profile and then you just add plus and you can either log films as you watch them, which will go into your diary, which kind of like is an ongoing like list that anyone can look at to see all the movies you've watched. You can add things to a watch list, which will disappear when you mark them watched. And you can make lists, just like maybe you made lists like I did back in the day on IMDb and Amazon of like, you know, I remember making a list that was like best sci-fi movies of all time when I was like 15. And then you just kind of follow people that you know, like ask it to recommend people you know. I'll follow you if you drop your username and you'll have a few people to start with. Also, everyone feel free to drop their usernames for anything. Anyone who's a regular and a friend of this show can always feel solicited to share their projects. Cool, Universe Retro. Well, that's easy. I'm going to follow you right now. Looks like you have already... Wait, have you been rating stuff? Are you doing it right now? I'm following you. All right, cool. Word. I was like, how are you have 18 movies? You just signed up. Okay, you're doing the rating. There used to be this thing on Facebook called Flickster. Shout out if you remember Flickster. That was a like an integration of Rotten Tomatoes onto Facebook where you could rate everything and do little reviews, and it was basically proto Letterboxd. And I used it all the time. I think it's another reason I was so delayed in getting on Letterboxd. I used it all the time and wrote little reviews, and then it went away, and I lost it all. And that is another thing. Buffalo maybe is such a good username. Look at. Anyway, maybe I'll get back to rating things on the 5-star. I do enjoy, sometimes I see something I love and I want to give it 5 stars. You know, I watch Speed Racer and I'm like, help this movie. I don't know, whatever. I'm weird. It probably doesn't matter. I think I'm just in my own F-wording head too much. Anyway, I Am Texas, y'all. Check that link I dropped. I Am Texas is directed by a Texas-based filmmaker named Ryan Darbone. I'm also in a hip-hop group with him. We're largely inactive, but we actually do have some tracks coming, I guess, so maybe we're not super inactive. Ryan Darbone is one of my favorite people and artists. And I gotta say, you know, when you see a friend's work, you're always kind of like predisposed to support it and like it. And so I went into this hoping that I would like it, thinking generally like Ryan and I don't always agree on movies, so knowing we have different taste. I gotta say, this transcended all friendship, loyalty, etc. This is a great short film. Like, it kind of knocked my socks off. In 10 minutes, it manages to do quite a bit. Story is simple. It is a black punk band driving back home to Austin to play a show. And it's largely just micro anecdotes from them entering the city to them getting about to play their show. And it just, in that time, manages to explore so much about black musicians, especially in Texas, especially in Austin, which, having lived in Austin for 12 years and been active in the hip-hop scene, I will tell you that Austin is a very liberal town that wants to think of itself as very progressive and woke, but at the same time, it has a lot of deeply entrenched liberal racism, of the kind of I don't see color sort of racism, and black musicians are often backburnered and relegated to kind of not having the same spotlight that like indie rock has. And it's been an uphill battle because Austin has been a typically segregated city. You can look into that history. And Ryan's movie is just very topical, but it's also very funny. And it stars, I mean, he's a comedian as well. He's got a great sense of timing, humor. I loved this short. It stars 3 of the best musicians in Texas, including Chief Doomsday, who was actually in our chat last week, who also runs a blog called Doom on Film. And so, just really good vibes all over this thing. Yeah, so if you want a 10-minute comedy short about microaggressive racism in the Austin music scene, starring a bunch of dope musicians, you should watch this, and it's in there. Cool. So, I recommend that. Not just because my friend made it, but because it's legit good. See what else. Okay, and that brings us to, this really brings us to the movies that I wish Stephanie was here to discuss, so I'm going to kind of capsule these. I'm not going to ramble quite as much. First of all, our first theatrical visit in 18 months? A year and a half, maybe? Not quite. It's 16 months. Yeah, 16 months almost exactly. Existenz. David Cronenberg's Existenz, 1999. It's been on our rewatch list for a while. If you're a longtime viewer of the show, you know that we did a super duper deep dive into the self-reflexivity of 90s genre cinema and the technophobia of bodies being taken over by technology and minds being taken over by technology that was really like started in the late 80s and carried on all the way through the aughts with the approach of the new millennium. It's a subject that I put a lot of thought into. I'm just really fascinated by the cyberpunk, steampunk, body horror movement. And Existenz is all of, well, not steampunk. It's definitely cyberpunk, technophobia, body horror, and a lot else. Saw this at a great little theater in Fairfax in LA called Brain Dead, which I'd recommend y'all look up if you're in the area. Look up their calendar. They've got a lot of cool stuff. What is there to be said about Existenz? It had been a long time since I watched it. It's one of Steph's favorite movies. She'd watched it a lot more than me. It was actually her first staff pick on the stream. I mean, I absolutely loved it. It's super prescient in so many ways. Like, the number of things it predicted, manifesting this fear of a sexuality and our bodies being taken over, that we necessarily have to submit our most intimate, innermost parts in order to engage with others. Because what if the social world ceases to become the physical world and starts to become a digital reality where we must sacrifice boundaries that we held in the physical world in order to connect? This whole movie is about fear of penetration, fear of bodily body dysmorphia, and fear of kind of being subsumed into a singularity where you lose your grip on reality. Definitely very 1999, definitely very Cronenberg in those themes. Steph and I were a little disappointed with our audience. I'm going to be a cranky old man for a second and say, I get that everyone's been inside and maybe everyone's like not quite used to going to the movies and just like chilling and being quiet and watching the movie. It wasn't that. This audience laughed at every little sex thing, like Jude Law trying to lick Jennifer Jason Leigh's port in the back. Him being afraid of being penetrated by the machines, the fleshiness. It got a lot of like laughs, and it felt weird, almost like I started at a certain point. I was kind of annoyed by it at first, and then I decided to see it as this like meta experience where the movie is about fears of what has come to pass happening. We do live in our phones now. We do tweet our most intimate and share our most intimate sexual sides with each other to make some connection. And I think it almost became this weird meta experience of watching a movie and then watching people watch that movie and their spectatorship becoming performance. Their desire to let fellow audience members know, I understand this, or I think it's funny, while also kind of missing the point that it's criticizing the reality that they've grown up in. It was kind of like an art exhibit. It was some tee-hee boobies stuff, and it was a little disappointed, but that movie just kicks major ass, and so you can't take that away. And I'm definitely going back. We're actually we're gonna go see Jurassic Park this month. Next month. It's not July yet. And they have a lot of other tickets. I might try to go see Sorcerer, but we're definitely seeing Jurassic Park. In the course of my lifetime, I've been lucky enough to watch Jurassic Park on a big screen 6 times. I think 3 of those on 35 millimeter, and I'm really excited to see it. Jurassic Park is always worth it to see on a big screen. And yes, I did know Rocky IV is coming back to the theaters in November. I'm so stoked. That's one of Steph's favorite movies. It's low-key my favorite Rocky movie. They're doing a director's cut. I made a joke about the fact that we got director's cuts. Forget Justice League. The fact that we're getting unreleased director's cuts of Super Mario Brothers, But I'm a Cheerleader, and Rocky IV is like cinematic year par excellence. Like, I can't believe that we're getting all these movies and new cuts. I cannot wait to watch it. I think it might... Right, that was what I was thinking, Pathos. Is like, I hope this movie is just all montage. I would watch 3 hours of Rocky training in the mountains. God, I love Rocky IV. I love how they end the Cold War with the strength of boxing. Anyway, Existenz, we followed up with another movie from 1999. Watch this one at home, Magnolia. Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, his third movie, right after Boogie Nights. I always waffle on this movie. I think when I first saw it, I was young and I thought, masterpiece. And then I watched it again, maybe later in high school, and thought, it's solid. And then I watched it in college, masterpiece. Then I watched it after graduating, it's solid. I always go back and forth, and I think I finally understand why. This was Stephanie's first watching. This movie is Paul Thomas Anderson whipping out every movie he's got in his Robert Altman playbook. The moving cameras, the uninterrupted takes, the ensemble cast all delivering like, whoa. Philip Seymour Hoffman and Tom Cruise in particular just on absolute fire in this movie. And it's really fun to watch them do such delicate emotional scenes with each other, knowing that they'll reunite in less than a decade for Mission Impossible 3. And just like the way that this is juggled as an ensemble piece, its overall message of interconnectivity and serendipity and chance and coincidence and its humanism is really attractive. It also has one of my favorite endings. If you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but it's got a really wonderful final punctuation mark that always brings kind of like a swell of emotion to my chest. No matter how I've been feeling for the rest of the movie, it hits me every time. I think that the problem is that the individual vignettes don't always hit as hard as they could. Sometimes they do feel a little bit like conventional drama, conventional beats of family drama, the old man sick in a bed reuniting with his son. Like, I think there is room to make the actual stories a little bit more rich and interesting, and I think that's honestly just the fact that Anderson wrote this when he was 28. So I would honestly love to see an imaginary version where he remakes this at age 45 with more of that lived experience. They say write what you know. I think this movie's fantastic, but it does suffer from a bit of a youthful lens at times. Yeah, anyway, that's my take on Magnolia. I'm also totally forgetting... Magnolia is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Really what I'm saying here is I used to consider it like a flawless masterpiece, and I think now I consider it a flawed but great film. With a lot to learn. And it's very inspiring if you're a filmmaker to see the way that Anderson is learning how to use the camera, like bringing it up a notch even from Boogie Nights, which I would call a masterpiece. But let's quickly talk about some double features for these, right? I guess Existenz, I would say, would make a great double feature with two things. Here's my program for you. Watch the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode with the virus in the school, which has very Existenz moments of the kid being afraid his body turning into computer ports. Very much the same technophobia fears going on there. And then Existenz and You Know It's Coming, The Matrix. 1999, two movies exploring the same idea from different angles. Both incredible. Existenz would also be a really good double feature with Edge of Tomorrow because they're both video game movies in unconventional ways. Edge of Tomorrow, speaking of Tom Cruise, is I'm going to write down as a potential staff pick for this week. One of my favorites. And as we get into Blockbuster Month, might just have to wreck it. And then finally, Magnolia, I would say double feature with Robert Altman's Shortcuts. Really, in many ways, Magnolia wants to be Shortcuts. They both want to have this like melancholy, dramatic, but occasionally moments of levity, interconnected ensemble pieces that take place across LA. They both also have Julianne Moore in them. Shortcuts is based on Raymond Carver books, and definitely I think, I'm just going to say, I don't think anyone would disagree, Raymond Carver is better at writing those moments of drama than PTA was at this time, and so it feels a little richer. I think I just kind of feel like I loved Edge of Tomorrow. I love it. I do. Same. And Universe Retro likes it too. Always heard they were going to do a sequel. I hope so. That movie Infinite that's coming out looks very similar in the sense that it's a video game movie. Like, it's not based on a video game, but it's a video game movie in the sense that it's about someone being able to repeat over and over to nail it. Yeah, I'd be here for it too. Fun thing about Edge of Tomorrow is that it was also released as Live, Die, Repeat after theaters. Like I don't think I have the Blu-ray of it here. I think it's in storage, but the Blu-ray itself, Edge of Tomorrow, is in tiny font to make it look like the tagline, and Live, Die, Repeat, which was the tagline for the theatrical release, is blown up to take the title spot. Warner Brothers trying to rebrand because it didn't do as well as they wanted it to. Anyway, we'll have to get Steph's thoughts on Magnolia next week. We haven't talked about it at all. She didn't want to talk about it after we watched it. I'm sure we'll have thoughts. She was stewing. And finally, y'all, Return of the Jedi. Boom, the only one I actually have on hand. And quickly, we're hitting that time of day where I slightly adjust the lighting. Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Episode 6. What can be said? I think it's still my favorite Star Wars movie. I love it. And now, for a fun little... Battle of Los Angeles. I never saw that. Did you see it, Wedge? Here's a fun little story. 2 days ago, Steph had the day off, and so did I. And she decided that she recommended that we try out this thrift store called Yes Baby Vintage. Not a thrift, vintage. I always say the wrong thing there. I know there's a difference. Yes Baby Vintage in North Hollywood. So we went there, and we had just watched Magnolia the night before. We went in, we browsed. It was an incredible spot. You can check out my Instagram or my TikTok for a little video of it. They had so much incredible collectible retro stuff. They had like 4 SNESs. They had a Rob the Robot. They had about 20 like complete in-box mint condition NES games that were about $100 each. Talked to the owner. She was super cool. Apparently all the games were her collection from childhood. Very much wanted to get Castlevania in the box, but it was $100. Rob was 80, so I didn't walk home with any NES stuff. But spent a long time browsing, and they're building out a Star Wars exhibit that they just started putting out. Literally, when we went in, they had one shelf done in their glass case, and they were starting to like clean all these retro figures from the Star Wars 1977 through 1983 run. They're trying to do a complete series, and this Wednesday they're actually opening like a local art show where people can come to see all the original Star Wars figures and buy them. They're all for sale. So I'm checking out the Star Wars toys. Steph's checking out the clothes because they also had vintage clothes. And there's so much to look at that it took me a good 10 minutes to notice that behind the counter was a giant format, and I'm talking like 5 by 3 foot, giant format Magnolia poster. And I go, Stephanie, look at this. This is crazy. I mean, because Magnolia's about coincidence. This is crazy. Look at this. And she, me, and the clerk working behind the counter, all at the exact same moment said, whoa, serendipity. Which is just Coca-Cola jinx on top of everything. And it was also Sunday, as our Star Wars Sunday. We've been watching one every week. It was also the day that we were planning on watching Jedi when we got home. And there was a Jabba the Hutt figure there in mint condition, complete, for about half of what eBay wanted for it. And I bought it because I felt like the universe was screaming at me to buy it. And so that's going to be here to show off on next week's stream. The reason he's not here with me now to show you is because they are doing an art show. So I was basically like, hey, can I buy Jabba in advance, but you just mark him as sold and you can keep him all week so that he's part of your show because he looks really cool and I know you don't want to have an incomplete set. And they were like, oh, that's super cool of you. They knocked off even more from the price. And now we have a new friends, Yes Baby Vintage, in North Hollywood. And that is the story. Castlevania Netflix series. I have some friends who've worked on that. Actually, a guy in Austin who directed a movie called Call Me Brother, which is an incest comedy you may have heard of, has worked on it. He's one of the editors for that show. I need to watch it. Big Castlevania Symphony of the Night fan. Oh, that was the other serendipitous moment, is that when the store owner told me it was her childhood collection and I said, ooh, I want that Castlevania, she said, I'm playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night right now, and I am too. I just started it 3 days ago. I just restarted it to beat it again. So anyway, just a very serendipitous little moment, sidebar. Anyway, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, still my favorite. I think Empire is clearly the better film. Like, Empire really knocked my socks off. Empire is a complete masterpiece, does every single thing right, flawless film. I think Jedi felt a little bit more like some of the moments didn't hit me as hard as I'm used to. And honestly, in a way that I like concerned me. I don't know if that's weird. I'm interested to see what y'all think. Like, I honestly thought I want to go to the stream and use them as a support group because I don't know if it's because this is the first time that I've watched the Star Wars movies in order numerically, but something about the reveal on Vader didn't hit me the way it did when I was a child. When I was a kid, that shit made me cry. I was like, he's saving his father. And it just didn't hit me as hard as I wish it would have. And I think maybe you can kind of see some of the franchise. You can see some of the things that will happen in the prequels. You can see some of the cutesier aspects. I'm not even necessarily talking about Ewoks. I'm talking about some of the sillier jokes that you can see, like, Lucas will later fill entire scenes with once he gets full creative control back. And so this movie, like, portions of it hit just as hard as they always have. The Jabba sequence is incredible. And I love how most of this movie is essentially one battle. But yeah, I think that Empire still, like, was the high point for me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk shit on Jedi. I love Jedi. Also, Yoda, yeah, the Force lightning. The Yoda scene still, I will say, Jabba and the Yoda scenes very much get me. So does the Luke and Leia and Han relationship building. Overall, love this. We watched the original cut, watched the special feature cut of the original theatrical version, and I'm glad we did because I could not have dealt with the corniness of what they changed for the ending. Yeah, Jedi is my favorite for several reasons. It's also like a creature extravaganza, which I love. Jabba's palace is essentially like, what if we took the cantina and blew it up? The space battles, as I believe you said last week, Wedge, are the best space battles in any of them. And of course, the final confrontation with the Emperor is incredible and super super moving. Yeah, it is still my favorite by a mile as well. Whole reason was because Yoda didn't like that Luke left to save his friends, didn't feel he was ready, was confident that he wouldn't even make it to Palpatine. The greatest battle ever. It is incredible, and it's incredible when Luke loses his temper and really succumbs, and you see him become that great Jedi. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think, well, here's the thing. With the Yoda mentioning the Force lightning to Luke, I like this fan theory of that Yoda didn't think he would make it to Palpatine, which I fully agree that I don't think Yoda thought Luke was going to be able to take Vader on. I think he totally thought Luke was going to succumb to the dark side, like Vader did. But I'm going to say that I think the reason he didn't tell them about Force lightning is more likely because the writers hadn't come up with the idea of Force lightning when they were filming Empire. Because there's definitely a lot of like ideas and stuff that's thrown in here, and we don't see Force lightning until Jedi for the first time. So that's my cynical point of view. The moment when Vader's dying on the shuttle is the culmination. Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so scary, is because it's like, that's almost like maybe we shouldn't have seen Force lightning in the prequels. Maybe this was Palpatine, this was a dark side skill that he manifested over decades. Maybe that's another thing that made it weird watching these in order was some of those little hiccups. But yes, that redemption moment of Vader used to, like, I remember like bawling once when I was like 14 and like rediscovering. I was sensitive little kid going through adolescence with all my hormones, and I remember it just hitting me right in the feels. And I try to get that feeling now, but yeah, I mean the sequel trilogy. Believe me, Wedge, we will get into that. I completely agree. And next Sunday we start with Force Awakens. We're gonna start Force Awakens. I love, but it definitely sets up a lot of dominoes that the other movies just kind of say, never mind. Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how I feel after watching those. It's like both the prequel and sequel trilogies miss out on some essential thing of what made the original work. I mentioned this before, that the original trilogy is they're action movies. They're on the run. As soon as they blow up, as soon as they start the Death Star run, as soon as they leave Tatooine, they're essentially on the run. When that Death Star gets them in, they're either prisoners or on the run for the rest of that original trilogy. Up until they win, they are either running, fighting, or being held prisoner. And I'm talking about the main characters. The prequels are costume period dramas. They take place, they're essentially dramas of war and politics that are mostly people talking. There's no... the threat is still being developed, and so they're operatic. They're operas about pieces being set up. And so the prequel trilogy like gets that we want a lot of world building, but it fails to deliver the stakes. And then the sequel trilogy delivers the stakes and has them on the run, but completely fails to character develop or world build, or have a central theme, as you said. Prequel trilogies very much have a central theme, and that's why they are such strong storytelling, despite the fact that they're poorly made. The sequels are exceptionally made, but don't really have the story. And right in the middle, you got the original trilogy, which has a great story and is exceptionally made. I feel like the whole thing's a big Venn diagram. Great story, Great filmmaking. Right in the middle is the originals, and then etc. I've made my point. I'm going to scroll back up here quickly to one thing I missed. Universe Retro. They want to leave you hanging here. Have I seen Underwater from 2020? I have not seen it. I'm going to look it up real quick on the old Letterboxd. And I'm going to take a moment to hydrate, y'all. Underwater 2020. Oh, I didn't see this, but I heard, I actually heard it was great. Kristen Stewart movie. I forgot. And Vincent Cassel. Never see him anymore. I want to watch that. Did you like it? Because I remember seeing the trailer and hearing some friends. Well, thank you, Wedge. I'm gonna tweet it. Surprised at how much I dug it. Cool. Yeah, I thought the trailer. Okay, well, I'll find some place to write it. Y'all know that, like, low key, I'm trying to remember all the things that we've talked about on here to, like, I try not to. Years ago, I had a friend tell me that you shouldn't talk about the projects you want to do before you're actually working on them. Because if you tell someone what you're doing, your brain will get the serotonin from accomplishment and you won't follow through. And so I try to keep things real close to the chest until I feel that I'm enough into them that I know I'm not going to flake. Because we all have, we all have a million things we want to do in our lives, and we have to choose a few. One thing I'd really like to do with this show eventually, and I'm going to speak this, and let's say I'm manifesting it, not getting the... don't pat me on the back for this because I haven't done shit yet. I would really like to turn this stream eventually into a book, and I would really like to try and write essays, me and Stephanie, as well as curate essays from people like you. That is the goal eventually. And Wedge, yes, it is true. Well, cool. I'm going to check out, just to put a cap on this, I am going to check out Underwater. I'm going to add it to my watch list. I've got it pulled up. Because the trailer really intrigued me. And I honestly, I think Kristen Stewart is really great at selecting roles. I really love what she's done with Oliver Assayas. I loved Personal Shopper. And I think she's really good at selecting these kind of indie, smaller roles that play to her strengths. I think that Kristen Stewart is a very talented indie character actor who I think accidentally Hollywood tried to make her a leading lady in a blockbuster franchise. Tried to make her, Bella in Twilight. I don't think that's who Kristen Stewart is. I think Kristen Stewart is more like a Sarah Polley or an Elliot Page. People who thrive in an independent, low-key cinema where they can deliver very human performances. And so I'm definitely excited to see that. Robert Pattinson's the same way. Came across a movie called Vicious Fun. May check it out. Let us know. Yes, I think I completely agree with you, Universe. Robert Pattinson, yes, it stuck with them. They were young. And, and that was also kind of a toxic part of fandom, too. Like, that era. I feel like we were all kind of part of it. And that era had a toxicity to it of, like, this thing is popular with young girls, therefore fuck it, right? And I think that's a learning moment. That whole generation of predominantly male nerds had to learn, myself included. And once you open yourself up to the idea that movies aren't just made for you, you open up the entire world, and it becomes quite the magical place to live in. And so I feel like Twilight was a weird, necessary cultural moment for everyone, maybe on a grander scheme. And I do think that it resulted in people judging, just like in the 90s when people gave Leo a bunch of shit because he was in, God forbid, movies that young women liked. Robert Pattinson's amazing. Cosmopolis is the movie that really turned me around on him. And in Good Time, he's incredible as well. Cosmopolis is like esoteric as fuck and kind of impenetrable and a little bit obnoxious, but also incredible. It's David Cronenberg, and it's essentially this futuristic movie where Robert Pattinson is a billionaire who's in a super futuristic limo driving through the city, and having a bunch of philosophical conversations. It's like Waking Life almost in that way. But yeah, really, really dug it. You know, I'm gonna put him on blast here, but I saw Cosmopolis in theater with Great Job Nerds with Vinny, and he fell asleep because we had been up too late the night before. That's when we were living together, I think. Okay, y'all. Well, see, it's funny, like, this part of our show really does go forever because it is the loose part where we just kind of randomly talk. Okay, and that brings me to our movie club pick. So that's it. If anyone else has anything else they want to share, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and hop us over to the new arrivals portion of the show. Short stack today, but But the O is that I got some really good news, fam. I got a notification that my Hong Kong rescue order has shipped. I know that if Munson J was here, he would have something to say about this. But Hong Kong Rescue is a one-man operation based in Portland that's really cool. I shouted him out before. I have one of the Blu-rays floating around here for Peking Opera Blues. And essentially what this guy does is he sources prints from all over the world to combine and come up with the best possible high-def restorations of movies from Hong Kong that have been either lost or only presented in truncated, Americanized, or otherwise poorly subtitled or remastered versions. I ordered his whole catalog November of last year as a birthday present to myself. And the thing is, he's a one-man operation, so he's kind of notoriously slow. You got to order it and then be patient. And I gotta say, because I moved, I was a little worried that maybe it would get lost, but I just got a notification that it shipped, and it's to the correct address. It's coming here, and by next week's stream, I'm gonna be able to show off those, and we're gonna really dive in. It's gonna be super exciting. Just made a list on Letterboxd that contains 190 some odd flicks that have to do with Charles Band and Full Moon. Hopes to watch a gigantic chunk of them. That's incredible. I'm gonna check out your list. I do love also Universe Retro. You'll notice this cool thing about lists on Letterboxd is that as you mark movies watched, you can it'll show you the percentage you've watched of a list. You can also go to a director's profile or an actor's profile or writer and see the percentage of movies you've watched that they worked on. That's a little bit more frustrating because Letterboxd includes a lot of behind the scenes and random stuff. So there's certain directors you may never be able to get 100% on because maybe one thing they're credited for is a special feature on an old DVD. Hell yeah. There's also a watch list function on there, Universe Retro, for your need to watches as well. Okay, new arrivals. Which one of these should I... This one has a receipt in it. This place is called CD Trader. It is in Tarzana, which was a bit of a hike for me on my scooter. But really fun. I went while Steph was at work the other day. And I didn't really expect to spend money, but I did. And I got a couple discs. They're all very, very cheap. First up is Nanook of the North. Now, we had talked about doing a documentary month on the stream later this year. I don't know why, but September feels right to me for that. September just feels like a documentary month. I don't know why. Just vibes. This is often considered to be the first documentary. It is from 1920. Where are you at, date? 22. 1922, Nanook of the North, Robert Flattery. It is about an Inuit hunter named Nanook. It's largely staged. So, in addition to being the first documentary, it is also the first example of the first documentary is the first example of a documentary filmmaker rewriting reality to suit their narrative. Now, let me back myself up here real quick. It's obviously not the first documentary, technically, because if you want to get real technical about it, the first documentary is a train arriving at La Tocha Station, the famous train arrival movie from the Lumiere brothers. But when it comes to not just like home video or just filming, like just putting a camera on the street, this is the first produced narrative feature-length story documentary. Anyway, it's also out of print, and I'm always looking to complete the Criterion collection. I have a side collection going where I'm trying to collect the first 100 original Criterion discs. Some are much harder to find than others. This one's out of print, and so I snagged it because it's much more expensive online than it is in the wild. On the subject of out-of-print Criterions that are rare, they also had a copy of Salo, which is typically, was once considered the rarest commercially produced DVD of all time. You guys know that it's one of the gems of my collection, is that I was able to track it down about a year ago. The Criterion Salo, incredibly rare, and it's also incredibly bootlegged. So anyway, they had a copy of it for $20, and I thought, shit, is it only worth that now? And I looked it up on eBay, and I was like, no, it's still worth a good chunk. So I'll buy this, and I'll flip it. I don't normally flip things, but let's be real, I could use the money to spend on other movies. And I took it up to the counter, and I said, while I was purchasing these, I asked them if they would mind letting me look at the disc before I bought it. And I opened it up, and the first thing I saw was that the art went to the center hole, and it was screen printed, very clearly not a Criterion. Like, there's hallmarks to look for on bootlegs of Salo, most notably a white frosted inner ring and the word Nimbus on the back. But you don't even need to look at that, because you can look once and see that a Criterion disc, I don't know, I'm taking it out. A Criterion disc is going to be printed like this, shiny, for their first 50 releases or so. And so I immediately, and then the other big thing to look for on Salo is that the original has 29 chapter stops. And so this one had the wrong disc art, and it had 7 chapter stops. And I told them, I was like, I gotta pass on. I tried to be really delicate. I was like, I gotta pass on this. It's a bootleg, just so you guys know. And they were like, they were really like, it was a cool shot, but I could definitely, like, I felt a little bad because they were like, are you sure? Does it say Nimbus? And I was like, no, I know it's a bootleg. I'm sorry. And then they told me they knew it was a bootleg, and that's why they priced it. And then I thought, well, maybe put a sticker on there to let people know. That's the ethics of movie trading is one thing I will comment on. Okay. Gonna add this to my watch list real quick. Where did I put my phone? If you guys dig docs, check out Will Work for Views, The Lo-Fi Life of Weird Paul. Available on Prime for free. Weird Paul's going to be in the Mom and Pop documentary. Fantastic. Let me... Will Work for Views. Cool. I'm going to add that to my watch list right now. Done. And if you're just joining us, or if you joined late, just to let y'all know, Universe Retro is producing a documentary called Mom and Pop, which is about... video stores in the 80s and 90s, and that boom specifically. So go check out Universe Retro on socials, and feel free to drop that social info too. Anyway, that's my saga of Salo and Nanook of the North. Next up is Bad Biology. Yeah, it's not going to let you do links, unfortunately. Do it with add a space in there. It's going to star it out. We've tried. Pathos has helped. Just put a weird space in there, or a bracket or something. Okay, I'm a big Frank Henenlotter fan. I've been looking for this for a while. Kind of wanted to get it on Blu-ray to complete my little Henenlotter Blu-ray section up here. But the Blu-ray is really expensive, and this was really cheap. It's also out of print, and love Henenlotter. Love the weird, like, sexual gore exploration. And so, pick this bad boy up. Bad Biology. So, for those who are maybe unfamiliar, Henenlotter did Basket Case, Brain Damage, and Frankenhooker, most notably. And all of his movies really explore. Think of him as the trash house Cronenberg. They're all psychosexual body horror, reflecting the damaged psyche of modern American living and sex. Good stuff. Good stuff. Very excited to watch. I've never seen this, so really excited to watch that. Same. Oh, momandpopdoc.com. That's easy. Yeah, y'all go throw that in the browse there. And then finally, y'all, this is a nostalgia purchase. This was $12. And, okay, I'm going to be real. I own Moulin Rouge on Blu-ray. I own Romeo and Juliet on Blu-ray. I got a DVD copy of Strictly Ballroom. But this was $12. And it comes with a collector's disc that I don't have. This is the Baz Luhrmann's Red Curtain Trilogy box set from 2007 on DVD. I remember when this came out, I bought it for my high school sweetheart because Moulin Rouge was one of our movies. And I remember the box set kind of getting trashed at her apartment in college. No shade, but look, I'm just going to be real. You can... I never dated anyone in high school and college who took as good a care of their boxes and cases as me. Anyway, it kind of got trashed, and then she held on to it after we broke up because it was a gift. Obviously, she was like it was hers. But I always wanted a copy, and I always had such a hard time justifying it because I owned the movie separately. But this is in pristine condition. It was like new. It gave me that nostalgia. You know what I'm talking about, that like wave of nostalgia when you see it. And I grabbed it, and I'm really happy I did. I honestly think that I'm really excited to go on a Baz Luhrmann kick and kind of rediscover these. So, Strictly Ballroom, his first movie from Australia. Romeo and Juliet, obviously, the classic adaptation. Moulin Rouge, which legit one of probably in my top 50 movies of all time list. And then the Red Curtain Collector's Disc, which is a 2-hour... interactive documentary on Baz Luhrmann's process and what the Red Curtain trilogy means to him. So overall, pretty stoked. It also doesn't look too shabby on a shelf, and that was my pickup. So that's basically it. Not bad for $35 at the CD Trader in California. Cool. Oh yeah, the CD soundtrack. I mean, of Moulin Rouge or of Romeo and Juliet, because they're both incredible soundtracks. And I gotta say that I wore the Moulin Rouge soundtrack out. I used to be in an R&B... it's like an experimental sample-based R&B group that I used to be in as a side project. But it required me to sing, which normally I'm rapping, not singing. And so I would play the Moulin Rouge soundtrack and belt it in the car on the way to shows to get my voice warmed up. Yeah, Moulin Rouge. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite movies. What up, Bulldogs 1992? Welcome. We're just finishing up New Arrivals, which is like some unboxing stuff. Not much to report today. And we're going to move into Movie Club here in a second, but I will answer your question. Thank you for coming by. Love a good... actually, everyone feel free to answer this. Favorite Disney animated movie? I mean, this is something I always have queued up in my head. It's the Lion King and Robin Hood. Lion King, I think, is perfect. One of the best movies ever made. Robin Hood is my favorite because it's not, it's obviously flawed and from their messier 70s period, but I love it deeply. Goofy movie. That's a good answer. Good answer. What's yours, Bulldogs? And welcome. There was a thing going on Twitter yesterday where someone said, what's your favorite right-wing piece of media? And people were all sharing like movies and stuff that they were like, this is unexpectedly a pretty conservative piece of media. And for me, I was like, it's The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy are pretty conservative movies. Like, they're very Patriot Acty. But someone said The Lion King, and they said that The Lion King from top to bottom was an endorsement of hierarchy and the right to rule and the natural order. And I gotta say, I completely disagree. I feel like those are all the things that Simba unlearns. I always thought that The Lion King was about a fascist dictator trying to rally marginalized working class into voting against their own self-interest and destroying the ecosystem, while a young entitled brat learned to go experience ego death, be raised by gay parents, understand that everyone is connected, and come back to try and lead with empathy. I've never seen The Lion King as a right-wing movie, but I would be interested if anyone has a counter argument. Honestly, I was reading it and reading through some of the replies, and I was like, dang, I want to have a proper debate about this. Lion King's one of my favorites. Monsters, Inc., perfect film. Fucking love Monsters, Inc. And Sleeping Beauty, Wedge, absolutely. Sleeping Beauty is a masterpiece. By the way, one of the emotes that we're going to have, custom emotes by next week, one of them is going to be, Adam called it a masterpiece, and I encourage you to spam me with that whenever I call something a masterpiece, because Stephanie's giving me a lot of shit for it, but you know what? There's a lot of masterpieces in the world. I'm sorry. I didn't do it. I'm just calling it like I sees it. Speaking of you doing live shows, we're going to hit one up while I'm in LA, or karaoke. I don't know yet. Venues for live music have not quite been all the way open, is my understanding. I'm still trying to be real, I think I'm going to have to be an attendee at several live shows before I just start hopping on bills. It's actually on my to-do list for later this evening after the stream wraps, is to shoot some DMs out to some people. We will see. I hope I can hop on a few bills. If not, yeah, karaoke. We have a karaoke spot 2 blocks from our place. It's walkable. The staff literally all have shirts that say, walk here, stumble home. It's a fun joint. We'll go there. I'm really excited that you're coming out here, by the way. I'm still a newbie in LA. I still have much to discover, and I'm still constantly blown away by how incredibly big this city is. It's one of those things where my brain can't even process how big it is. You can just drive, and it feels like the computer is just remapping the same few blocks. Yeah, hell yeah. First time in LA. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of good food. If you get a free day, and you come with giving yourself a robust per diem, I don't know what sort of budget you're working with for your travel budget. I'm just going to say, if it's your first time in LA, try to go to Disneyland or do the Universal Studios tour. Do the touristy stuff. You got to do the touristy stuff. There's no shame in it. It's incredibly fun. As well as just trying to see a movie at the Chinese Grauman, the Chinese theater. Do the Hollywood Walk. Maybe we can go to Amoeba Records together. I'm looking forward to you coming, not just because I'm really excited to get to be part of this documentary, but by the way, Stephanie and I get to appear in this documentary, which rules. Super, super stoked on that. I'm also excited that I will have an excuse to go do some fun stuff. Chinese theater is awesome. I think the last movie I saw there was the Italian Job remake, so it's been a while for me. Yeah, it's been a while for me. Oh, that's rad, Wedge. That's very rad. No time, couple hours. Cool. Awesome. Well, we will kick it. We will find a way to kick it. Yeah, I'm down for whatever, and I understand that. You're out here to work. You're coming out here to work. All right, y'all. Shall we transition into Movie Club and talk about the elephant in the room, which is the gayest horror movie ever made. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. I watched this on tape. I love VHS, but I watched Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street on Shudder, which is a documentary produced by Mark Patton about his experience as a gay actor, feeling as though this movie outed him when it was not safe to be outed, and it partially ruined his career. I'm going to talk about that documentary first. The only thing about the documentary that I wanted it to be slightly different was that it was so clearly produced by him and his story, and he grows throughout it, and it's really interesting. But part of me wanted a little bit more of a objective view, because it's very much autobiographical. It very much feels like him telling his story. It's fascinating, though. just hearing how he really had everything poised to break out as a hit actor in Hollywood. And then this movie came out. It immediately had a bunch of queer readings, which were not as friendly then as they are now. They were very hateful and fucked up. And resulted in like him, basically his agents telling him that he couldn't play straight anymore. He needed to be a gay character actor. That, along with the AIDS epidemic and him losing a lot of people, you really just it's a really, really fascinating portrait of 80s Hollywood, the homophobia of Hollywood. And it's funny, people always think of Hollywood like Hollywood often gets called like, you know, all the liberals out there. It's not. It's actually pretty conservative. It's very money based, first of all, and second of all, it's all about following the trends of more middle American sensibility. And so Hollywood in the 80s, incredibly homophobic, and this movie, Scream Queen, did a lot in pointing that out. But overall, just really interesting seeing Mark Patton's story of kind of like being in the right place at the right time, and then hard pivoting to being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And just very interesting, very sad, but also very hopeful in the way that he's kind of found the joy in what this movie means to people and meant to people. So we picked this because we've been celebrating queer cinema all month long. Happy Pride. If you're celebrating, and in general, happy Pride Month. This is our last stream. And we wanted to get into queer horror because we hadn't really gotten into queer horror that deeply. And if you're going to go queer horror, you might as well do Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. So, cool, gotta do some stuff. Anyways, yes, I agree with everything Glowcat said, and have a great night. Go follow them. Glowcat's incredible. Later, homie. Thank you for coming once again. It's always wonderful to have you here. I hope that you heard me say that before you jumped. Cool beans. I'm just going to say, Scream Queen's fascinating, and you should watch it. And it made for a fantastic double feature. It also includes a lot of high-def footage of this movie, and I will say I watched this on tape right after watching it, and I feel like the right way to watch Nightmare on Elm Street movies is to watch them on tape. But I will admit that part of me, after seeing that doc and seeing some of the special effects, and then seeing them on this old tape with my contrast maybe set wrong, I definitely was like, ooh, I want an HD box set of these Nightmare movies. Because last Halloween I watched through the full stack and watched through the whole franchise on tape. Anyway, sound off in the chat. Let me know if you got the chance to watch this or if you're familiar with it in general. Let's talk about this movie on its own merits, not necessarily historically the way it was made, but the movie itself, because especially if you watched... I need to hydrate. Especially if you watched Scream Queen. You know that there is a lot going on behind the scenes. My personal opinion is that the writer did write this from a homophobic perspective. He denies that, but he did an interview where he said that was the case and then later denied it. I do think that this is a straight writer kind of exploiting the fear of bodily decay that the AIDS epidemic had, and the fear of your body changing, along with homophobia in 80s cinema, to paint the queer as monster. Now, we could do a whole episode here about the queer as monster, and the Scream Queen doc talks about that too. I tend to think that in terms of the way this movie was made, that the writer did that, the director was more or less oblivious, and that the subtext shone through. It is still hard for me to think that Jack Shoulder, the director, did not realize that he was making a gay film, because so much about the posters on the walls, the gay club they visit, it's very explicit. It's at times, as the documentary says, at times the subtext just jumps up in straight text. And Universe Retro, I appreciate your honesty. I think that this is a thought I had while watching this, is that I didn't used to like this movie very much either. And I think the reason is because I've always looked at it as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I think that's why a lot of fans didn't like it. Because it breaks the mythology. It breaks the rules. It doesn't make any sense that Freddy... I guess it makes enough sense. But the idea that Freddy is trying to use the body of someone that's in this house to come into our world... it doesn't really gel with the mythology of the first movie, and by the time the third movie comes around, the second one is essentially completely rejected. They keep Freddy in the world of dreams. I think that is what the selling point always was that the nightmares allow for the effects, and so grounding it in our world is a strange move. I think this film, however, suffers from the same thing that Halloween 3 suffers from. Halloween 3 was also really hated on because it had no Michael Myers in it. It's just poorly titled. I feel like this movie, just poorly titled. If this movie was not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, had a different title, and just slightly changed Freddy, give him a different name and some slightly different makeup, I think this movie would be a lot more celebrated for what it essentially is, which is it's a Wolfman movie. It is a werewolf movie. It is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie. It is a demonic possession movie. Ultimately, it is about the duality of man and the monster as the queer essence as monstrous to a heteronormative nuclear society. And that's a tradition oldest time in horror. And I really do think that on those grounds, it is a wildly successful movie. Thank you, Mahjong. I'm going to hydrate. We love water. Water is life. Spice melange. So yeah, that's the thing. I completely respect how people... I completely respect anyone not digging this movie, but I would also say my micro counter-argument is to try and see it not as a Freddy movie. Because I do think that franchise expectations unnecessarily color it into trying to make it something it's not. I gotta say, thank you, Mahjong. Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. That means a lot, especially considering I'm without my co-host tonight. I really, I gotta say, upon watching this movie last night, I kind of came away from it being like, this movie's perfect. Do I want to say it's a 5-star movie? Maybe not, but this is, again, why I don't like the star system, why sometimes I avoid it, is because I don't want to limit this movie with a rating. I want to talk about it. I want to say, as far as carrying on in the tradition of things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or the Wolfman, in terms of the everyman, basically this movie is remixing that, the queer other and the monster, which is long tradition of horror. It's remixing that concept with the demonic panic possession of a post-exorcist world with the slasher. And the fact that results in it having a final boy instead of a final girl. I find this movie to be kind of a really interesting, blendered up mix of different horror influences. And yeah, while I do think, just to tie a bow on this and go back, while I do think that the writer was originally coming at it from a homophobic perspective, I do think that the movie itself, maybe the director's obliviousness combined with Mark Patton's very earnest performance, results in this movie being textually gay, and it on those grounds it's incredible. This movie is giving male nudity, the flipping. It's giving so much to young gay horror fans that they never had, and the way that it is expressed through every beat of the story, everything really works. The girlfriend trying to get close. And Mark, Jesse is the character's name. Jesse not being able to. Jesse kind of turning into Freddy. Every beat of Freddy representing some desire that Jesse is ashamed of and feels is monstrous and feels is dangerous to be in the world, as on a meta level it was in the 80s, and still is in many places now. It gives it a personal earnestness where Freddy becomes almost not villainous, but a reflection of the id. Now, one thing that is problematic about this theory is that Freddy is a child killer. And so the screenplay is necessarily tying homosexuality to pedophilia in a way that a lot of homophobes did, especially in like the 50s throughout the 80s. And that's unfortunate. But again, divorcing it from the Freddy mythology a little bit more, every beat of this movie works. The other thing that's been criticized is the ending. The idea that the girl, the love of one good woman, is enough to melt Freddy and bring the boy back into a heterosexual world. We watched a movie a few weeks ago called Something Special, which was another gender exploration movie from the 80s, that also suffered from this. The revert to status quo ending. Now, I'm going to actually say I disagree with this criticism for Freddy. Because yes, you can look at it, and you can say that, oh, this movie is arguing that this movie is a horror movie for gay conversion camps. It's horrible to be Freddy, to be gay, and the love of the woman brings Jesse back. But it doesn't. You could read it as her love melts Freddy, destroys him, and brings Jesse back. Or you could read it as a high school kid has finally learned that being his true, authentic self is too much. And when she says she loves him, he decides it's not the word love melting him, it's the obligation to her feelings melting him. She loves him, and therefore he decides, okay, I'm going to do this. She loves me, she's a good girl, she's a good person, I'm really going to try and make this work. But then what happens at the end, same thing that happened at the end of the first Nightmare movie, where Freddy comes back because it's in him still. I feel like that you could make a sequel to Nightmare 2 about Jesse as again, forget it's a Freddy movie. You could make a sequel to Nightmare 2 about Jesse in his 40s as a married man with kids who has been closeted his whole life, and Freddy comes back. There's just a lot going on in this movie, and I think it's a lot smarter than I ever thought it was. And that's really my rant, y'all. Yeah, that is really my 2 cents on Freddy 2. It really jumped up in my ranking on this watch particularly. And I will say that we love to watch things in context here. You know, we talk about it all the time. Pretend you're the original audience. Experience it that way before you add the weight of time to it. And I think that watching Scream Queen really helped contextualize this in a new way, and I really was fascinated by it. By the way, I stayed up until 6 in the morning watching this. I put it on at 4 a.m. because I knew I'd have a busy day. So I am also a tired boy doing today's stream. But that brings us to the end of Movie Club, unless, hey, Movie Club's not just me talking about how I feel. If you got a chance to watch it, share your thoughts. I feel like typically, some of us watch, some of us don't, and Stephanie and I kind of talk through what we thought, maybe argue with each other a little bit, argue with you in the chat, discuss. So yeah, Universe Retro, I also see where you're coming from. But I would say I'm very happy that this movie has gotten its critical reevaluation, and I'd recommend it. I would recommend it, actually. This might sound like sacrilege to Freddy fans, but whatever. Nightmare on Elm Street's my favorite horror franchise, so I'm going to get away with saying this because I love it so much. I would almost suggest that if you've never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie and you're interested in queer horror, start with this and then go back and watch the other Nightmare movies on their own merit. But separate this from the pack. Much as I might tell someone, hey, if you want a creepy kids Halloween movie, watch Halloween 3. Then go watch Halloween 1, 2, etc. But we will have plenty of time to get into horror. Overall, let me put a button on this. I really appreciate those who have watched through and been here with us as we have explored queer cinema. throughout the course of June and Pride Month. I've said this to Stephanie. Sometimes I feel weird as a cis, mostly straight guy talking about these things because I don't want to take up any space. I wouldn't really use the word queer to define myself. Sometimes I feel weird taking up space talking about it, but Stephanie, who does identify as queer, does identify as queer, not more overtly, kind of always says, like, no, let's talk about this shit. So I just want to thank everyone for diving in because representation is incredibly important. And before we got to this point in history where we really started trying to, before culturally, I think, we started really understanding the importance of representation had to be sneaky. And so the history of queer cinema in particular, navigating a very homophobic and often hateful film, American Hollywood landscape, you end up with a lot of really interesting, fascinating, brilliant art. So thank you. Challenge yourself to watch things with characters of all different kinds, and I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just grateful that y'all joined us on this journey. And then let's go ahead and pick what's next movie. This is how we end every stream. I get rid of this. I say goodbye to Freddy. Hey, it's been great. Thanks for coming. And I said, it's been great. Thanks for coming. Thank you. And then we pick what's going to be next. So, July. Summer, blockbuster, popcorn, cinema, celebration, extravaganza. Let's get big with it. What should we watch for Movie Club? Movie Club, for those who don't know, who are for enjoying. I'm glad you enjoyed, Wedge. And Universe Retro, I'm glad you were able to tune in. It's really awesome. This is what we do. We all kind of pick the Movie Club pick together. Oftentimes, Steph and I will have recommendations or try to guide the conversation. But ultimately, if something gets votes, then bye, Mahjong. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Oh, and thank you, Holden Wook. Really appreciate getting that. Hey, yo, missed the stream, but yo, well, thank you. You came in bearing gifts. No apology necessary. Yes, thank you for sending that around. Oh, dude, Holden Wook, you rule. I mean, you gotta see Shia's Transformers. Oh my god, Transformers. Yes, I did see that in theaters. Man, the Transformers movies. Armageddon. Yeah, because we have been talking about doing some Bayhem. And Armageddon has come up. And I will say that while I make it a yearly tradition to watch Independence Day on the 4th, and the 4th is coming up, I feel like we all kind of do that Independence Day thing, maybe, or Jaws. And so when it comes to blockbusters, if we're discussing it, Jaws and Independence Day are right there. Jaws kind of helped create the blockbuster, so it might be a fun spot to start. But I'm also, Bay. Transformers, I saw in theater once. That's the last time I've seen it, so I'd be interested in rewatching that. And Armageddon is very up on my list. So yeah, let's start by throwing out some things. We have talked about several blockbusters on the show, getting excited for July. So I say we just pick the one we're most excited about. We talked about Face Off. We talked about Armageddon. Any Bay, really. We talked about... Face Off and Armageddon, I feel like are the two that came up. But it might be interesting to even go back. I'm just going to do a straight goog. Do a little bit of a goog. I'm just going to try Googling biggest movie blockbusters of all time. Maybe that'll help us get... Maybe that'll help us get a little bit of a zoom out on time so that we're not just seeing a bunch of Marvel titles, right? Although there are plenty of Marvel titles on this list. I'm also trying to think, like, at some point, maybe we can kind of theme these weeks out, and we can explore, like, the idea of the failed blockbuster. We could watch something like John Carter or Lone Ranger and watch things that, like, failed to launch in the way that they were anticipated to. It's really interesting looking at this top grossing movies list, because a lot of things they're on there you wouldn't think of as blockbusters. We've definitely got things from the 80s. Beverly Hills Cop, Predator. And we just did a bit of Star Wars. We could also go back to some, like, corny disaster movies from the 70s, like Airport or Earthquake, the original Gone in 60 Seconds. Really, what are we feeling here, y'all? Predator would rock. Independence Day. Oh, dude, yes, you absolutely should, Universe Retro. Done. If you happen, like, if you can line it up with your schedule, you are invited, of course. That sounds rad. Biggest blockbuster of a particular decade. I like that. Yeah, I'm into that. Speed just made me, like... Speed just kind of got me. I don't know, Speed feels good to me. Speed feels good. It's also one that I've watched less, and it also encapsulates one of my favorite things about 90s blockbusters, which is the fourth act. And by that I mean movie ends, but surprise, there's 40 more minutes of action. Alright, I'm going to throw it up in a poll. Let us vote. Alright, here's the poll. It's at the top of the chat. You have to click a little arrow. So I'm about to throw it up. Blockbusters. Let's go ahead, and we got the ones that people have mentioned and shown a response to. And I think this is a good list to start with. Trying just to go on what was said. Holdenwook's never seen Speed. You know what is weird, Holdenwook, is that I hadn't seen it until really recently. Until, like, I think last year. Speed, same. I think what would be fun is to kind of divide things out by, like, standalone blockbuster, franchise blockbuster. Like, maybe we could get into something like James Bond movies or something. Go back in time. We could do failed blockbuster. We'll get in. This month's going to be fun. Fair enough, Universe Retro. I feel like we just landed on Speed, guys. One of my favorite little things in the world of DVD collecting, and something I did early in quarantine when I was bored, was collected all, and this is not all of them, because some of them I put in storage, because when I moved, I had to... Y'all know if you watch the show, but when we moved to LA, we had to put about half of the collection in boxes, and my folks took them to my old bedroom in Iowa. But one of the things that I collected, again, they're not all here, were these Fox, these shiny, silvery Fox 5-star classic, what do they call them? 5-star collections. And look at this. This is right off the top. I'm going to leave these two out. These are both going to get watched in this house this week. But absolutely... Oh, Speed just released on 4K. Ooh, might have to stream that. I don't have a 4K player yet, but we do have a 4K TV. Dang, you know... there's so many discs that I want to be picking up. Apparently there's a big disc release or announced today as well on Diabolic. I saw the guy who runs Diabolic tweeting about it at like 6 in the morning when I was going to bed. after watching Nightmare. And he said a big announcement's coming today. Oh, it looks like it might be... Let's see here. That's very pretty. It looks like it might be Demons. Demons 1 and 2 from Synapse. Which I was kind of hoping it was the... I was kind of hoping it was The Thing, because there were some rumors that it might be The Thing. Let's see here. Big ultra high def. A lot of people have been waiting for this. A lot of people guessing. I wonder if it was Demons. Well, anyway, I guess that's what it turned out to be. You know, The Abyss and True Lies would be two that would be pretty great to have as well. Speaking of blockbusters, The Abyss was one of our first movie club picks, and I would love to watch. I think it may have been Demons 1 and 2, yeah. That's probably very exciting for many people. I'm personally disappointed because I already picked up the Demons 1 and 2 from Arrow when they released it earlier this year, the British version. And so, yeah, True Lies rules, and I have no idea why Mr. James Cameron is so obsessed with technology, building new kinds of cameras to shoot his movies, taking decades to make things, obsessed, and yet can't put True Lies and The Abyss out on Blu-ray, let alone 4K. What are we waiting for? I think that might be it. Universe Retro. It did look like Diabolic just listed it today. And let me look in their pre-order section real quick. It is the 4K. Yeah, it is the 4K. Which, by the by, I actually bought these. I actually haven't bought any of this new stuff on 4K. I bought it on Blu-ray. One, because I feel like I'm old and my eyes can't quite tell the difference. But two, because I don't have a 4K player yet. And I just want to get the cool versions. But something fun about Demons is that apparently one of the discs had a glitch on it. And so Arrow actually sent me a replacement disc of the 4K one. So I ended up having that quite by accident. Anyway, we have come to the end of the stream, y'all. It is going to be Speed. Looks like Speed swept it. Stephanie does not have a staff pick this week, but we need to give her one. So movie club pick. And again, follow. You can watch archival episodes of this show on youtube.com/babylion. You can follow me on Instagram at Protextor. You can follow Stephanie at Flock of Smeagol's. These are both on the sign that rotates in front of me. And you can follow the video store itself on Twitter at You Are In A Video or on Instagram at You Are In A Video Store. And I always post what the movie club picks are as well as what the staff picks are over there. So movie club pick this week is Speed as we enter into blockbuster territory. My staff pick, damn, I want to go with a blockbuster, right? I want to bring it in. And then Steph's staff pick, I'm going to try and pick for her. What did she watch this week? I know she watched something I didn't get to see. Something she's been interested in or really loved lately. Because she actually watched The Sandlot. That was the first event she worked, was The Sandlot. Dang. I want to text her. She's probably busy right now. I'm gonna text her. Nah, she's working. She just got this job. I feel like her staff pick would have been Speed. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna make Steph's staff pick Rocky, because it was a big blockbuster and I know that it's a favorite of hers, and I don't think she'll mind if I make it Rocky, specifically because we also brought up Rocky 4 on the stream. I know that Rocky's a huge favorite of hers. I actually just I bought her the original tape from a fire sale just to have it for her. Speaking of fire sales, I feel like there's one going on in a tape group that I'm in right now, maybe, that I want to go check out as well, so y'all wish me luck. And my staff pick, Adam, what is your GD staff pick? Have I done Speed Racer yet? Probably. Fuck it, I'm going to insist that Speed Racer is one of our... Speed Racer might be my pick for failed blockbuster. Just because it's objectively the best movie ever made throughout all of time. Objectively. Ooh, also like hated blockbusters like Planet of the Apes remake. That might be fun. And I feel like a lot of the ones... I know my staff pick is. My staff pick is Mad Max Fury Road Black and Chrome Edition. Okay? I said it. I'm willing it. It's what it is. I know this movie's incredibly popular already, but the Black and Chrome Edition is... here's my pretentious take on this, okay? I'm just going to warn you. I'm going to sound like a little pretentious for a second. I love Mad Max Fury Road so much. George Miller originally wanted to do this movie in black and white without dialogue and with only sound and sound effects. Some of the dialogue is unnecessary, I will say, because the visuals communicate it. But when I watched Mad Max Fury Road in black and white, the chrome cut, his original vision, there's something about the visual flattening of everything and reducing it to just white desert with gray and black vehicles. I don't think I've ever seen anything feel more akin to what I would say is pure cinema. It is nothing but movement, shadow, and light. And it is perfect. It might be... I think that Mad Max Fury Road is in my top 10 action movies of all time, but something about Mad Max Fury Road Black and Chrome... No cap, it's my pick for number one best action movie of all time. Seriously, it is. Number one. Ugh, so pretentious. I did it. I got there. I made someone ugh and used an emote. By the way, we'll have custom emotes for the chat next week. Sincerely love all y'all. This is, like, the world's opening back up. Stephanie started working. I'm looking for jobs. This show is gonna stay right here because it has been one of my favorite things to do, period. And I love that we have such an excellent group of folks here. I say it every week, but I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to sign off. Y'all have a good night. If you're out in the world, get home safe. Take care of each other. Watch more movies. Be kind, rewind. Black lives still matter. And we will see you 1 week from today to talk about...
in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video. From Lubitsch to Mamoulian, Cooper to Leone and Kobushi and Suzuki. These movies take you to New Orleans. We recommend it. Never pretentious, it's never ending, just where our head is, Ace One Kauai, Slaughterhouse 5, those Hollywood nights are Hong Kong on fire, I could watch it all night, but stop and rewind, watch it again, you strapped in, ain't no stopping the ride, I Ginger Rogers the time, swing down to Broadway and lights, Ishii, Miike, Tarkovsky, Almodovar, Von Sternberg, Dietrich, Garbo, Garfield, Heathcliff, and Transformers over on the 80s TV show, you need a hand, we can reach it, move in silence like Bernal Melius, Mishu, spending afternoons with Maya, then watch Freddy Got Fingers, it's all love for that silver screen, baby, what that TV do, and we here every week too, so don't you touch that dial, bruh, we ain't skipping the previews. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video store. You are in a video store, say you are in a video. You are in a video. You are in a video. Welcome to the rental shop. 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 Welcome to the rental shop.